Hey there, this is the Resistor Vic Podcast. I'm here to get folks thinking about politics as something that's really about regular people like you and me, and to realize that together we can make a difference. I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. So first, let me say thank you to everybody that stuck through and watched or listened to last week's episode, because I went back and watched it. And while the information I feel was good, I think I talked about some important stuff. The energy, holy crap. At the risk of sounding like Orange Julius Caesar, that guy had no energy. He was very low energy. And it wasn't easy for me to watch. So if you watched it and listened to it and shared it or reposted it or restacked it or whatever, thank you very much. It means a lot to me. Now, since I do know how bad that was, I am going to promise you that I am going to always have some energy when I record. If I have to put it off another day and make sure that I have the energy to do it, I will do it. I will start planning better. I'll do what it takes to make sure that I'm giving you my best and not what I had last week. So having said all that, let's talk about a point of view. Right now, when things happen in the world, the Republicans are so good at making sure our point of view is trained on the shiny object that they want us to train it on. The Democrats, they're really, really bad at focusing about giving us a different shiny object to look at, or however you want to phrase it. And I'm going to talk about three stories, three headlines, if you will, that help explain what I'm talking about. The first one, there's a headline in the AP today. It said 100 plus criminal cases dropped due to lack of public defenders. Now, I read the story, and what's happening is they don't have enough public defenders in Massachusetts. They don't have the funding for the public defenders in Massachusetts. They were supposed to get it, but at the end of the day, the bill that the governor signed didn't have it. And the public defenders decided, you know what? They won't pay us. They won't hire more so that we have enough public defenders. You know, we'll spend money on the prisons. We'll spend money on the prosecutors. We'll spend money on the cops. But they don't want to spend money to make sure that somebody who's in danger of losing their liberty has a proper constitutional defense. So the public defenders, they said, we're walking out. And the system is not able to hire enough lawyers off the street to pick up the load. So that's why I want to say it was 127 cases got thrown out of court today, because there's rules. You have to give people their day in court. You know, we got that, I should know this one, Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial. I think it's the sixth. So if you're not going to live up to that, then you got to dismiss the charges. Now, the charges can be brought again, but it's just going to create more and more of a backlog. And the politicians and the prosecutors and the judges are all talking about what a crisis this is. And if that's all you read, if you take that point of view, then that's exactly what it is, a huge crisis of criminals being let out to roam our streets and endangering the public. Fact is, most of those cases were very minor traffic offenses, drug offenses, not a big deal. But there were some bad ones in there. There were some domestic abuse. There was some assault, child abuse, things like that. That did get let out of court and put back on the streets. And they don't have the resources to tell the victims, hey, this is what's happening. So that's what everybody's focused on. But what if? What if somebody, enough people, the right people, What if they decided to look at this from another point of view? That point of view being, we lock up way too many people. Our system cannot handle the number of people that we incarcerate. America incarcerates more people per capita than any country on earth, by far. And you look at the worst countries in the world, Russia. I mean, granted, they throw a lot of theirs off of balconies, but still, no other country locks up people like America does. But then no other country has as many private prisons as we do either. So instead of looking at it from the frame of we're letting criminals out, look at it from the frame of we're locking too many people up. And I've got a great example for you. I worked for 17 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections. And one of the few reasons that one day I couldn't do it anymore, I took my ID to my boss and said I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. And one of the reasons is we don't have a justice system. We don't have a rehabilitation system. We have a warehousing system. And we don't provide for offenders when they get out. We don't have a system that helps them succeed. We have a system that challenges them not to fail. Case in point, this young man that was on my caseload. Before this case, he was a model citizen, high school athlete, graduated high school, did some college, got into the workforce, never, ever had any kind of a problem. Then one day, one of his friends, so-called friends, stole $100 from him. And rather than either write it off as a loss and get a new friend or call the cops, of course, that kind of thing's hard to prove. My son had a friend steal a gun from him, and he couldn't get the cops to do anything about it. So instead of being smart, he let his emotions control him. He wasn't even 25 yet, so that tracks. And he went and took the guy's PlayStation, his game console. He's like, well, you took my $100, I'm going to take this. Well, the other guy, he went to the cops. He said, hey, this guy stole from me. Now, if that had happened to me, if I was the guy who took the PlayStation in the town that this kid took it, that town being Colorado Springs, El Paso County, it wouldn't have gone that far. I would have either been able to give it back or, the cops would have been like, that's your problem, buddy. But this kid had the fatal mistake of being black in Colorado Springs when he did it. So he didn't get any benefit of the doubt. Nobody looked at him and said, dude, you've never been in trouble. Let's figure out a easy way to solve this. Nobody did that because he was black. And I can say that because I worked in that system long enough, and I saw the case files from every county in this state, and I saw how some counties, there's 5 of them in particular in this state, you do not want to be arrested while black, or brown for that matter. Because if you are, the system is not going to be kind to you. Anyway, I don't want to get off the point. He got probation. And because he had never been in any kind of trouble before, he wasn't taking his probation seriously. He's like, okay, I'm on probation. All I got to do is stay out of trouble. Easy peasy. And this all goes away. Well, it's not that easy peasy, because if you're on probation in Colorado, you can't go to a bar. But he did. He went out with his friends one night. They went to a bar, and guess who was there? His probation officer. Boom, you're arrested, buddy. Got sent to the halfway house. Now, that woke him up. He's like, oh my God, I got to toe the line. I got to follow the rules. I got to do everything just right. And he was trying. He was really trying. And this is backed up by all of his case, all his file, all the notes in his file backs this up. There was this guy at the halfway house that wanted to fight him, because halfway houses, they're private prisons, and they all run for profit, low-paid workers, very low level of professionalism. They don't care what's going on. So this guy kept trying to get him in a fight, and he kept avoiding it. But one day he was unable to avoid it, got in a fight. What happens next? Prison. It's automatic. If you get kicked out of the halfway house, you're going to prison. So he came to my prison, came to my caseload, And he had a parole hearing within a month or two. And I told the parole board, I said, look, this guy's in prison because he's black. He's in El Paso County. There's no way he's here if he was in this county or if he was a white kid and the same thing happened. And the parole board agreed with me and they gave him parole. As far as I know, he succeeded from there out. He's probably got a wife and kids by now. But the point is, that's somebody who didn't have to go to prison. That's somebody that didn't need to be locked up. And minorities in this country are locked up far more as a percentage of the population. You know, I don't remember the numbers right off the top of my head, but the percentage of the minority population that goes to prison is much higher than the percentage of the white population. And it's not because they commit more crimes. It's because of cases like the one I just talked about. Anyway, we don't need to lock up that many people. So when you see stories about all kinds of criminals being let out on the street, and they're talking about how horrible that is, instead of just saying, yeah, you know, that is a bad thing, that's terrible, and we need to hire more public defenders, which they do, either way they do. Instead of just going along with the same narrative they're feeding you, try another point of view and ask yourself, but do we really need to lock that many people up? Could the public defenders do their job if we didn't feed them so many accused criminals to take care of? That's one. The second headline I saw today, record low birth rate. That was in the AP. The United States of America has the lowest birth rate on record in 2024, according to the CDC. And India, there was a paper from India that covered it too. And the solution is for the government to pay for IVF and bonus checks for having babies. That's never going to happen. I mean, the IVF thing's never going to happen because the minute the government starts paying for IVF, then the Christian nationalist nut jobs are going to say, oh my God, what about all those babies being thrown down the drain? So that ain't happening. And the fiscal conservatives are never going to agree to give people checks just to have babies. No, their approach is take away contraception, take away any right to abortion. They're working on taking away a woman's right to get a divorce. They're trying to set up a society where we keep them women barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. That's what they want. And that's the point of view that dominates. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody agrees with that point of view. That's not what I'm saying at all. But everybody is focused on that point of view. Phony solutions or radical laws are the solution to underpopulation, or what they view as underpopulation. That's their view. We have to have more babies, period. But what if we look at it from several other points of view? One, the only reason we need a growing population is because that's what the capitalist system demands. I mean, that's economic science. When you have capitalism, like American capitalism, it is wholly dependent on the next generation being larger than the previous generation. Because if the population's not growing, then the company that's selling the widget isn't selling more widgets. So the company has to continuously grow in order to profit, in order to make all those guys on Wall Street happy. They need to increase their revenues. So if the Democratic Party was anywhere near as skilled as the Republican Party in shaping a point of view or changing a point of view, you know, the Republicans say, look, shiny object, and everybody looks. The Democrats are like, I wonder what kind of a shiny object I should present. And why do I need a shiny object? Do I really need a shiny object? That's what the Democrats do. So we need to take it upon ourselves to find a point of view, to look at other points of view, if you will. For instance, what if, just saying, what if we were able to convince more people to look at it as Well, young people aren't having babies because they can't afford the rent, because they can't afford the diapers, because childcare costs more than a college degree. Maybe that's why people aren't having kids. Or maybe they're not having kids because we are becoming a tyrannical country where they're taking away women's rights right and left. And people don't want to be in danger of being pregnant, because it used to be being pregnant was a happy, joyous occasion, and now it's a gamble. If you're in the wrong state, becoming pregnant can kill you. So maybe that's why people are slowing down on the whole having kids thing. Or what if young people are looking at the direction our country's going, saying, I don't want to bring a kid into that. The world, they're looking at the world. They see possible World War III growing out of Israel and Gaza, plus Russia and Ukraine. And there's the threat of China and Taiwan. They look at all that stuff and say, you know what? This world is pretty jacked up. And they can't see any solutions to people solving stuff because America has retreated. If America was not paying for the genocide in Gaza, and if America was paying to help defend Ukraine, then maybe the younger generations could be more hopeful. But we're screwing it up. So maybe that's why young people aren't having babies. Or, again, here's another point of view. What if they look at the failure of all of the countries, but especially America, to attack the climate change crisis? What if that's driving them? What if they're saying, you know what, I could have a kid, but I've seen the movie Interstellar, and I don't want my kids to be the last or second or third to last generation? Maybe that's their thinking. You can't blame them, because we are failing to address climate change, especially now with this administration. So multiple points of view. But again, the Republicans are like, look at this shiny ball and pay attention to it. And we're not talking about all this other stuff. And the third story, it's not simply from today, because it's been in the headlines for weeks, and I'll bet you can guess what it is. Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Now, what's the shiny ball in this one? In this one, the shiny ball is Donald Trump. Everybody is focused on Trump not releasing the list despite his promise. Everybody is talking about how he's not releasing it because he's protecting himself. Everybody's focusing on, well, can we convince people that it's not that big a deal? Or why are they trying to convince us it's not that big a deal? Or let's convince people that it was all a setup, that Obama somehow built this big, amazing, incriminatory file on Trump and Epstein and then never used it to keep him from becoming president twice. Yeah, that's plausible. But it's not, but that's where they got us looking, because that's the narrative that they're driving. That's their shiny ball. Or Mike Johnson today, talking to the press when he was asked about child trafficking and a vote on child trafficking. What did he say? Well, we just had a big, beautiful vote on child trafficking because with the big, beautiful bill, we improved border security to stop child trafficking, which is all bullshit, by the way. But that's him being a skillful Republican trying to shift the point of view in a way that favors not releasing the list, getting people to think about other things. Well, here's a way, if you really want to see the list, then I've got a point of view that we should all be pushing. And that point of view is, we know Trump's on the list, so what? We know that he's trying to keep us from seeing it because he's on it, so what? The bigger point of view is that Donald Trump was not the only billionaire going to Pedophile Island. That's the point of view that we need to be pushing. If we want that list to come out, if we want to know everybody that's on it, then that's what we need to be talking about. Stop talking about Trump. Stop talking about Maxwell. She's going to get her pardon or commutation or whatever. They're going to make her happy so that she doesn't talk. So stop talking about Donald Trump and Epstein and start refocusing the conversation on everybody that's on that list. That's what we want to know. Yeah, there's been plenty of people say, we want to know, even if it's one of our guys, we want to know. But they're not doing it in a way, especially not the Democrats, they're not doing it in a way that is refocusing the conversation to all of the billionaires, all of the rich people who are going down there and abusing young girls. That's the narrative that is going to get that list released. At least that's my opinion. So, one story, one point of view, that's how most people process news. But a deeper understanding comes when we step back. And it's not easy. It's kind of like empathy. You don't just have empathy for somebody. It's a skill that you got to practice. And changing your own point of view or experimenting, looking for other point of views. When somebody says there was this terrible car crash and it was probably from a distracted driver, maybe it was. But is anybody looking at the other factors that was in that crash? Or are they just assuming distracted driver based on the headline? You have to train yourself to look for the other point of view. And when that comes, then you train yourself to discussing that other point of view with other people. So the final message is, next time something outrages you, don't just react. Ask what you might not be seeing. So there you have it. That was episode 8. I hope I had more energy this time instead of that zombie I was last week. Next week, I am working on, I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I'm working on trying to find somebody who is a on-the-ground campaign volunteer in the Florida special elections. I sent a message out to Z. Cohen Sanchez and I asked her if she could help me find somebody, and she's going to try. But I want to bring to you the voice of somebody who is just a run-of-the-mill Main Street American who got involved in that election. And I want you to hear from them about their experience, about their motivation, about how they felt with the results, how they felt about the DNC's lack of involvement until the last minute. I want them to tell us everything because I want you to understand that politics in America is not what you see on TV in the headlines. There is another point of view. And if I can help you understand that other point of view, then maybe I convince a few more people to get involved at the grassroots level. That's how we change this in the long term. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you for giving me your time. I hope I made it worth your while. Good day. Well, folks, looks like we're back at the barn and it's time to call it a day. I sure do appreciate you spending your time with me. If you want to help keep this podcast going by supporting me, you can get a paid subscription on Substack, where I'm Resistor Vic. Or if you're the type that'd rather go to PayPal, I'm also resistorvic@gmail.com. Thanks again.